Hey Spurs fans, welcome back to another update on our San Antonio Spurs. Before we jump into today's breaking news, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. And here's something special for you. Everyone who subscribes and leave a comment with their name and the city they're watching from will automatically be entered into our giveaway to win an official San Antonio Spurs jersey. So don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and comment your name and city below. Stay tuned, because the next Spurs fan wearing the jersey could be you. The season had barely begun to reveal its first chapters when an unexpected shadow fell over San Antonio, interrupting the silent spectacle that a young European giant was beginning to turn into routine. The environment, once fueled by excitement and grand projections, now sank into uncertainty, as an apparently simple physical issue became the central theme of every conversation in the coaching corridors and the stands filled with anticipation. Since the middle of November, precisely from the 14th day, the Texas franchise has lived with an absence that echoed louder than any loss on the scoreboard. The French prodigy, whose presence seemed to alter the very logic of battles inside the paint, stopped appearing among the starters, creating an undeniable void on the floor and giving rise to speculation, concern, and countless theories about when the full spectacle would finally return. Although initial projections suggested a longer period on the sidelines, new signals began circulating behind the scenes, nourishing the hopes of the fan base. A source closely connected to the team's daily coverage, recognized for precision and privileged access, indicated that a return could come sooner than most had expected, perhaps even during the decisive phase of the upcoming elimination tournament. Even so, caution still reigned supreme. The possibility of participation in a potential clash against the Los Angeles squad, scheduled for next week, still feels distant, almost improbable. However, the mere fact that this scenario has not been completely ruled out reignites a spark of expectation that had seemed to fade days ago. The most solid outlook, according to this specialized analysis, points to the month of December as the milestone for the young phenomenon's competitive rebirth. Between the final stretch of the first half of the month and the symbolic atmosphere of Christmas, the conviction grows that he will be back at center stage. Coincidentally, this possible return would occur on the eve of a meaningful clash against the power from Oklahoma, a team that so far reigns over the conference with a near-perfect sequence, totaling 20 victories against just one defeat. When the disruption of his trajectory occurred, the San Antonio squad was living through a promising balance. 8 wins had already been accumulated against 4 negative results. What could have become a collapse, however, turned into a test of resilience. Surprising analysts and detractors alike, the group secured 5 wins in its last 7 outings, proving that the collective structure, even when shaken, continued to pulse with strength and ambition. During this turbulent stretch, one name emerged with renewed intensity. De'Aaron Fox embraced the leading role with remarkable authority, dominating the scoring in virtually all recent contests and establishing himself as the beating heart of a team that refused to surrender to chaos. The rare defeats came against relentless adversaries such as Phoenix and Minnesota, true modern fortresses of the game. Now, however, the road that lies ahead demands more than talent. It demands mental resilience. A confrontation against Memphis serves as the starting point for a challenging journey that will include battles against Orlando and Cleveland, 2 hostile environments where every mistake is severely punished. Each possession becomes heavier with meaning as all await, in collective silence, the return of the one who alters every dynamic. The Frenchman's impact prior to the interruption was almost unreal. In 12 appearances, his numbers revealed not only efficiency, but domination. More than 26 points per night, nearly 13 rebounds per game, and an average above 4 assists. Figures that not only lead his brief professional journey, but also place him among the league's elite. Added to that are nearly 4 blocks per contest, and a shooting accuracy that exceeds half of all attempts, showcasing a level of precision as rare as it is intimidating. Before we go on, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Your support keeps our Spurs coverage strong and brings you the latest updates straight from San Antonio. And jump into the comments. Tell us what you think about today's news. The video begins not with a confirmation, not with a press release, but with a quiet, suspenseful image of the Frostbank Center lights glowing against the Texas night. And in the silence that follows, an unspoken question seems to echo across the league. What exactly do the San Antonio Spurs have planned this time? And why is the name of a Cleveland Cavaliers star suddenly circulating in the most unexpected corners of NBA conversation, as if a seismic shift is about to break the balance that has quietly been forming across the conference? Inside league circles, what started as a whisper has grown into a low, constant rumble, and that rumble carries a name that feels both powerful and improbable in a Spurs jersey. Jarrett Allen, the defensive anchor of Cleveland, the man whose presence in the paint has altered offensive game plans for years, now shockingly linked to a franchise that has already turned the basketball world on its head simply by drafting Victor Wembanyama and committing to a radical, long-term vision of dominance. The idea alone is enough to send social media into overdrive as fans, analysts, former players, and insiders attempt to piece together fragments of information to understand how and why this connection has emerged, because the Spurs, long known for working in silence and striking with surgical precision, are not a franchise that allows rumors to breathe unless there is some substance beneath the surface. According to multiple league sources, conversations around San Antonio have shifted dramatically in recent days, moving away from simple player development and toward a more aggressive, win-now approach, as if the organization believes its championship window is not a distant dream, but an approaching storm. And in that storm, an elite defensive center like Allen begins to look less like a luxury and more like a missing piece. The Cavaliers star has built a reputation as one of the most reliable interior defenders in the game, a player whose presence alone can reduce opponents' efficiency near the basket. And when one considers what pairing him next to Wembanyama could create, the imagination of every basketball mind is set on fire by the vision of an almost impenetrable defensive wall forming under the Spurs' rim. What makes the situation even more intriguing is the contrast in styles, where Allen's raw strength and disciplined positioning could perfectly complement the fluidity, length, and unpredictability of Wembanyama, forming a frontcourt unlike anything seen in modern basketball, and potentially rewriting the blueprint of how teams construct their rosters moving forward. While Cleveland has remained officially silent on the subject, the absence of a denial has only fueled speculation further, as front offices across the league understand that silence in moments like this is rarely meaningless, especially when the name of a player as central to a team's identity as Allen begins trending in relation to another franchise. In San Antonio, the fans have responded with a mix of disbelief and electrifying excitement, visualizing what the future could look like if such a move were to materialize, seeing flashes of past glory, echoes of Duncan, Robinson, and those legendary defensive dynasties that made the Spurs a model of sustained excellence. The thought of adding another defensive cornerstone suggests something far more ambitious than a simple roster upgrade. It suggests a statement of intent, a declaration that the Spurs are no longer satisfied with gradual progress, but are instead preparing to accelerate their rise and force the league to adjust to their emergence much sooner than expected. Jarrett Allen's style of play, defined by discipline, rim protection, rebounding dominance, and a quiet but intimidating presence, aligns eerily well with the historically reserved yet ruthlessly effective identity that San Antonio has cultivated over decades, making the rumor feel strangely natural despite its shocking nature. Observers have begun to wonder whether internal changes in Cleveland, combined with San Antonio's treasure chest of young assets and draft capital, could form the framework of a blockbuster agreement that would send shockwaves through the entire NBA landscape and trigger a chain reaction of responses from rival franchises. The moment this rumor surfaced, rival executives reportedly began making calls, trying to gauge the seriousness of the Spurs' intentions, because the possibility of Jarrett Allen joining forces with an already promising young core threatens to dramatically shift the balance of power in both the Eastern and Western conferences. More than just a trade rumor, This development is being interpreted by some as the first major chess move in what may become a rapid restructuring of the league's hierarchy over the coming seasons, a sign that the era of patience in San Antonio is giving way to one of strategic aggression. For Allen himself, the potential move represents a fascinating new chapter, taking him from a Cavaliers squad locked in its own competitive battles to a franchise that is clearly building something generational with Wembanyama as the centerpiece and with a front office known for maximizing the abilities of its big men. Speculation continues to intensify around how such a pairing might function in real-game situations, how opponents would be forced to stretch their offenses away from the paint, and how guards would hesitate before attacking the rim when faced with two elite shot blockers waiting in the shadows. The strategic implications alone are enough to make coaches and analysts reconsider their offensive schemes, as the hypothetical Spurs frontcourt would likely discourage interior play entirely, funneling opponents into lower percentage jump shots and transforming San Antonio into a defensive nightmare. The more the idea circulates, the more it begins to feel less like fantasy and more like an inevitable evolution, as if the Spurs, understanding the rare nature of Wembanyama's talent, are determined to surround him with the kind of support that accelerates championship contention while protecting him from unnecessary strain in the paint. Fans of the Cavaliers, meanwhile, have responded with a mixture of shock, denial, and concern, clinging to the hope that this is nothing more than speculation, yet unable to ignore how persistent and widespread the narrative has become in such a short period of time. Across sports networks and digital platforms, debates have intensified, with some arguing that San Antonio would never break its traditional mold to acquire a well-established star, while others counter that the modern NBA rewards bold moves and that even the most disciplined organizations must adapt to survive. What cannot be denied is the psychological impact the rumor has already had, as it has forced both franchises into the spotlight and drawn unprecedented attention to the Spurs' long-term strategy in a way rarely seen since the early days of their dynastic era. The timing also feels strangely perfect, arriving at a moment when San Antonio's young roster has shown flashes of cohesion and promise, as if the foundation has finally been laid and the final pieces are now being considered to complete a structure built for sustained dominance. Imagining the fan reaction if Jarrett Allen were to step onto the court in a Spurs uniform for the first time is enough to send chills through the imagination, with the crowd erupting not just for a new player, but for the confirmation that their team is entering an entirely new phase of ambition. Even the coaching staff would be presented with unprecedented tactical freedom, able to experiment with lineups and rotations that could suffocate opponents in ways rarely witnessed at the professional level. The potential ripple effects across the Western Conference are equally dramatic, as teams currently considered contenders would be forced to reconsider their roster construction, their trade strategies, and their long-term plans in response to the sudden rise of a new superpower. If completed, such a move would be remembered not merely as a transaction, but as a moment that defined an era, a bold decision that announced to the world that the San Antonio Spurs are no longer waiting for the future to arrive, they are actively shaping it. As the days pass and the speculation refuses to fade, every minor update, every cryptic comment, and every body language reading from executives is examined under a microscope, turning this rumor into one of the most captivating narratives of the season. What was once unimaginable now sits firmly in the realm of possibility, and the closer the league gets to potential trade windows, the more realistic the scenario begins to feel to those paying close attention. There is a sense that something is building, something massive and transformative, and that when the truth finally emerges, it will arrive not as a gentle announcement, but as an earth-shaking revelation that alters the trajectory of multiple franchises. For the Spurs, this is more than just acquiring a player. It is about redefining their identity in a new generation, merging the legacy of discipline and defense with a modern hunger for innovation and dominance. For Jarrett Allen, it could be the opportunity to become an even greater force in league history, aligning his prime years with a project that has the potential to explode into an unstoppable empire. And for the NBA, this developing story stands as a reminder that beneath the surface of every calm season, There are forces quietly moving, plans being drawn, and futures being rewritten in secret rooms filled with strategy and ambition. As the video fades out, the question remains unanswered, hanging in the air like a promise and a warning at the same time. Are we witnessing the birth of the league's next great dynasty? And is Jared Allen the final key to unlocking its terrifying potential in San Antonio? That's it for today's update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of every exclusive San Antonio Spurs news drop, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. And don't forget, your opinion matters to Spurs Nation. Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.